Good morning. My name is Daniel.
Good morning.
This is Christine, and we're the O'Neills. In May of 2004, Christine and I were blessed with 3 beautiful baby boys, Donovan, Noah, and Christopher. Donovan and Noah are identical twins, nonverbal, and have special needs, and they have Chiari malformation 1s. When Donovan was 3 years old, we began our family's Chiari journey.
Because of Donovan's disabilities, he didn't start walking until he was almost 2, and he could be unsteady. But when he was 3.5, we noticed something a little different. He was falling a little more, and his left hand didn't seem as strong as it was before. So we took him to see a neurologist. He performed a physical exam, but didn't see anything, so he ordered an MRI. When the results came back, he said Donovan had Chiari malformation 1 and a small syrinx in the cervical portion of his spine. We had no idea what these words meant. We had never heard of Chiari malformation, and we didn't know what a syrinx was. He referred us to a neurosurgeon who reviewed the MRI and recommended that Donovan go through a full decompression brain surgery. Hearing the words brain surgery was a very scary thing, and to have them associated with your child was even worse. Looking back, I think we were in shock, and we didn't know what to think. We managed to ask the doctor how many of these surgeries she had performed, and she said 2. That wasn't a very comfortable number for us, so we decided to seek a second opinion. We went home and started doing our homework, started researching the disease and searching for a new doctor. And that's when we found Dr. Rugi. We made an appointment to see him, and one of the first questions we asked was how many of these surgeries he had performed. He said over 100. That number sounded better, but that wasn't the only reason we wanted Dr. Rugi to be our doctor. He listened to us. He answered our questions. He explained the surgery, the complications, all the risks. But more importantly, he really seemed to care about what was happening to Donovan and our family. He also respected the fact that we were hesitant to put Donovan through such an invasive surgery. And then he asked us a very important question. Was Donovan in pain? Now, even though Donovan is nonverbal and can't tell us if he's in pain or show us where he's experiencing the pain, we can tell through his actions and his gestures when he is hurting. And he didn't appear to be hurting. He was still a pretty happy little boy. So we all decided to wait and just to watch. For the next 7 months, we followed up with MRIs and that showed the syrinx was slowly growing, but his symptoms hadn't changed. Then one day in July, 8 months after his diagnosis, Donovan woke up one morning and his left arm was hanging limp at his side. He could not move it, he could not move his hand or his fingers, and he was having trouble using his left foot. I can't explain what we felt seeing him like this. It was one of the scariest times we've experienced as parents. We called Dr. Rugi right away, and we told him what was happening, and right away he scheduled Donovan for surgery. He performed a posterior fossa decompression, a laminectomy of the C1, and a duroplasty. With this being our first experience, we didn't know what to expect, but the surgery seemed to go very well. Donovan was in pain the first couple of days after surgery, that was evident, but on the 3rd day something changed, and I can remember this very clearly. I was sitting at his bedside holding his left hand, talking to him, when all of a sudden he squeezed my hand, and he moved his arm. We were very grateful. At that moment, we felt like Donovan was going to eventually be okay. He quickly started to recover. He experienced no complications, no infections, and within 2 months, he had the full use of his arm and his hand and his fingers back, and he was walking very steady on his own. By 3 months after surgery, he was his old self and running around and playing.
Now, while we were excited that the surgery was successful, we knew that Chiari is a long-term journey. So we discussed this with Dr. Rugi, and we knew that we would be doing annual follow-up MRIs on a regular basis. So for several years, the Chiari and the syrinx was stable, So that our boy does have a syrinx, and it stayed small. It shrank a little bit, and then in 2010 on an MRI film, it came back and grew a little bit, but just real slowly. We didn't see any outward signs of any distress or physical or any mobility issues, and Donovan just seemed to be his typical thriving self. In 2015, the syrinx grew a little more aggressively and went down to the T1. That was pretty significant for us. But again, after discussions with Dr. Ruge, we looked for secondary indications. We didn't see any signs of distress, no mobility issues, nothing. Donovan was his normal little self. In 2018, we did an annual follow-up MRI, and it showed that the syrinx had grown aggressively and was now down to the T4 and actually had gotten a little wider. We went in within 2 weeks to talk to Dr. Ruge. Again, there was no secondary signs at this point, no mobility issues, no irritation. He seemed fine. So as Dr. Ruge spoke earlier to allowing a child to grow, we had always discussed allowing a certain period of time to have the child possibly outgrow, provide more room with the Chiari, and alleviate that syrinx. Oddly enough, 2 weeks later, we began to see physical distress and signs that Donovan was having problems.
By this time, Donovan was now 14. 10 years had passed, and what we saw now was much different than what we saw when he was 4. This time, Donovan was in a lot of pain. He was constantly rubbing his eyes, hitting his ears, patting the back of his neck, and he was having trouble sleeping. He was a changed little boy, and there was no consoling him. We called Dr. Ruge, and when he saw Donovan, he knew, and we knew, it was time to move forward with another surgery. So Dr. Ruge performed another full decompression surgery, and thankfully, once again, it went very well. After surgery, Donovan, of course, was in a lot of pain for the first couple of days, but while we were still in the hospital, we noticed a big change. He wasn't rubbing his eyes anymore, he wasn't hitting his ears or the back of his neck, and he seemed more peaceful. He started smiling, and he even wanted to get up and play. He again began a very quick recovery. There were no complications, and there were no infections. By the time 2 months had passed, he was walking with ease, and he was back to being our happy little boy. 8 months later, here we are, and he's still doing very, very well, and he is showing no signs or symptoms. The follow-up MRI does show that the syrinx is still very large. It has shrunk from the C1 down to the C2 and from the T4 up to the T3, and it's even shrunk as far as width.
Right.
We continue to hope and pray with time and growth, as Dr. Ruge would like to see, that hopefully this syrinx just eliminates itself. My husband and I don't take for granted the success both of our boys have experienced with Chiari decompression surgeries. We know that there are a lot of people who don't have success and who are living in a lot of pain every day, and our hearts go out to you and your children.
Yeah, we would just like to, we try to look for a silver lining in every experience. So throughout our Chiari malformation journey, the people that we have met, the love and the support from family and friends, Dr. Ruge and his staff have been outstanding, and that has really been a big part of our lives. So that's the other side of that coin, is these people's lives that are touched by us and that we especially are touched by. I would especially like to thank my wife today. Everyone that's a mother of a Chiari child, she is the front line. When they come home, my boys are special needs, they want to play right away. She's the one that tries to keep those ping pong balls under the water so this kid doesn't blow out hit the back of his suture. And she has done a fantastic job. And so
I think you all know you can't do it without a team, and your husbands, and as wives and husbands, you have to be there for one another.
Yeah.
And another important factor, I think, is finding a very, very good doctor. We were so blessed to find Dr. Ruge and to have him not just rush into surgery, but to be conservative and to watch Donovan. And we didn't share a story about Noah, but Noah has also had his own Chiari journey, and Dr. Ruge has performed 2 surgeries on him, and he's doing very well also.
Yes.
So.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today.